If you're studying homeopathy, you must become very familiar with the Organon. The Organon is known by many titles, sometimes the Organon of the medical art, sometimes the Organon of medicine, and sometimes even the Organon of rational healing. There have been more than 110 different versions printed in 18 countries over the years. An Organon is an instrument for acquiring knowledge. Hahnemann wrote the first version of the Organon 20 years after the Cinchona experiment. It developed slowly, and he constantly refined it. Hahnemann's Organon is a blueprint for practicing homeopathy, and it's divided into aphorisms. An aphorism is a kind of truth or adage, a pithy observation. There are either 291 or 292 aphorisms in the Organon, depending on the version consulted. Today we're going to discuss 5 versions of Hahnemann's Organon. These are the ones preferred either by modern practitioners or by homeopathic schools. Dudgeon's translation of the 5th edition was the popular version among homeopaths in North America, enjoying many reprintings right up until 1950, but it is no longer in use. When Hahnemann died in 1843, he had been ready to release the 6th edition of the Organon. Melanie Hahnemann had the manuscript in her possession. However, a series of events prevented a timely publication. So, when in 1876 the version called the Wesselhoff was first published, it was so called because it was translated from the 5th German edition by American homeopath Conrad Wesselhoff. The retranslation was undertaken to correct inaccuracies that existed in the previous Dudgeon translation, but also because the printing plates of the 4th edition had been destroyed. This version was popular among the group of philosophers known as the Transcendentalists. Ultimately, it has been published with the footnotes at the bottom of each page, rather than following the work, and this version is indexed. The B. Jane version has a misprint on the opening page. It reads 6th edition, but it is in fact a translation of the 5th, and this version is still popular. The next version did not become available in English till North Americans until 1922, and it is commonly known as the Borky edition. It was for many years the premier text studied in English. It is not a full retranslation of the English. Borky began with Dudgeon's 5th edition and simply corrected it to reflect the changes made by Hahnemann in his 6th edition. The philosophical differences between the 5th and 6th are too complex to note in this presentation, but among the most significant developments were Hahnemann's proposal of a new method of remedy preparation and the introduction of the 50 millesimal potencies. This version has no index, nor does it have a glossary, but it does have Hahnemann's introduction to the 6th edition. It's worth noting that prescribers like Herring and Kent never had access to this material, so practitioners who claim to be Kentian in their approach actually practice from the 5th edition of the Organon. Moving on, we come to the version called the 5th and 6th combined. Available since 1970, it is a favorite because it clearly shows the changes in Hahnemann's thinking, as some paragraphs in the 5th were modified, but others were completely rewritten. This version offers both versions interposed. It has the prefaces to all of the editions, 1 through 6. It has neither an index nor a glossary. This is Coonsley's version of the Organon. It's actually written by Alain Naudet and Peter Pendleton, but Joost Coonsley checked and corrected their work. The translation was carefully done to make the material more readable. The German syntax of Hahnemann's era was long-winded and meandering. This version does not contain Hahnemann's introduction, which is a pity as there's a lot of valuable information in the intro. As an aside, let us encourage you to read all intros and prefaces in all homeopathic texts, and be sure to purchase full text editions of all books when assembling the library in your computer programs. In this instance, the translators were working from a microfilm of the 6th edition and were unaware that parts of the Organon had been overlooked through an error during the microfilming process. So although the Kunzli version is indexed, there is no introduction. So now we come to the final version to be discussed today. Known as the Organon of the Medical Art, the work is based on a very literal translation from the German done by Stephen Decker in 1996. Wenda Brewster O'Reilly, working with Decker, adapted each sentence into a modern grammatical structure to make it more readable. It has all the ideas expressed in each aphorism and the introduction noted in plain English in the margin. It also includes a synopsis so that the entire work can be read through in its simplest form. The synopsis even renders the copious footnotes to the essential thread, thus reducing their distraction. It has a wonderful glossary of all the terms, explaining the nuances of the German terms and idioms, and the work is extensively indexed. This version really brings Hahnemann's work to life, and it is a boon. All of the great prescribers of the past committed themselves to a lifelong study of the Organon, so pick a version and get started. As always, we welcome your feedback. Call us toll-free at 866-599-5950 or drop us a line, whnbooks@gmail.com, and bookmark our site and visit us often, www.wholehealthnow.com/books. Thank you.